Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So the eagle-eyed amongst you will be able to tell that I am back at home with my parents. Though what you might not be able to tell from this setup is that actually my parents have moved. These are my bookshelves but reconfigured. And so the past few days while I've been back at home before Christmas, I have been sorting out my bookcases, reorganising everything. I did want to film that video, but the haphazard way in which I was organising this would not have been a very interesting watch. And also, quite frankly, I was using my phone to watch YouTube while I was doing it. But alongside reorganising the books, it also meant that I was having a look at every single one of the books that I own and having another think at the end of a long year, thinking, okay, do I actually want to hold on to these or can they go to a better home? And so I have a little unhaul video for you. It's not quite as many books as years past, and I mean really every time I do one of these unhauls I want it to be fewer books because I want to be buying fewer books that I end up ultimately not wanting to hold on to. And I mean next year my plan is that I really want to be using the library a lot more, using digital and audio resources a lot more for my reading, so that as much as possible I'm only reading books that I know are going to be keepers for my little personal library right here. But without much further ado, let's just get straight into these books that I'm unhauling. The first of the romance books that I'm going to be unhauling is A Funny Story by Emily Henry. I generally try and pick up all the Emily Henrys as they come out, and I'm a big fan of You and Me on Vacation and Book Lovers. I love those so much, but unfortunately I do find her a little bit of a hit and miss romance writer. And this, while it had bits and pieces that I enjoyed, ultimately not really for me. On a similar track we have At First Sight by Olivia Dade. I'm glad to have read this one. I'm very tempted to read other books in this series, especially because I loved Spoiler Alert so much, but I'm never going to come back to this one, and so I'm letting it go. A romance writer that you might be surprised to see me letting go of a book of theirs is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I have read and enjoyed almost everything that Ali Hazelwood has written, but this is the only book of hers that I have DNF'd. Yeah, I guess I'm just a boring romance reader. I like contemporary or I like historical. I'm not really one for supernatural things. So a vampire werewolf one I was receptive to. I wanted to give it a good shot, but I just didn't enjoy this. Haunted Tales by Adam McQueen. Look at this, it goes very nicely with my outfit. I picked this up in Dublin at the end of October, and I read a good chunk of these, but after a couple of months, if I'm still not going back to them and I'm just finding the stories okay, I think that was a bit of a sign to me that maybe I should let this go. I have this random like little sample of a graphic novel comic strip. I don't know where this came from. I think it may have been a Society of Young Publishers event. I think somebody else is going to make a better home for this than me. The Girl Who Reads on the Metro. You know, I love a book about books. I will always give them a shot, but this just wasn't anything special to me. No Fond Return of Love by Barbara Pym. Unfortunately, I'm just not on the Barbara Pym hype wagon. I gave her a really good go in 2022, and I don't know, the humour's just not really for me. I have a proof here of No Life for a Lady by Hannah Dolby. This one I think has actually had a sequel recently. I was really keen to read this. As you see, I got a proof of it. The vibe it was giving me was very much like Miss Scarlet and the Duke, which is a show that I love, but unfortunately I just found it a little bit grating and the characterisation just a bit uneven for me. Oh, a potentially controversial one is Fame by Anne-Marie MacDonald. This is one that I actually picked up on the March London book crawl. I was so excited for this because at the end of 2023 I was seeing so many people really hyping this book up. It was a lot of people's best book of the year, and I just found it very dull and overlong. I feel like I get what Anne-Marie MacDonald was trying to do, but I just didn't enjoy the execution. The Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher. Very cute book, but out of all of the Christmassy books that I own, this is just one I'm never going to return to, so it might be one that I pass on to my nieces. A couple of smaller Christmas books that I have: Christmas with Dull People by Saki and Home for Christmas, which is a collection of short stories by A.S. Byatt, Michael Morpurgo and Lenny James. I have a couple of lovely little Christmas shelves, and unfortunately I'm just not going to come back to these. I'm a big fan of Sarah Knight's books, but unfortunately books 3 and 4, You Do You and F No. You know, I've read them, I enjoyed them. These are two that I'm probably not going to go back to, whereas her first two I actually have actively gone back to and taken more lessons from. This just feels like more of the same, and if I ever do want to return to Sarah Knight, I can always get her out of the library. What I'm really disappointed that I didn't enjoy more was Eyeliner, A Cultural History by Zara Hankier. Some of the history in here was so interesting, but unfortunately I found Zara Hankier's writing, her way of actually conveying this information, just a little bit all over the place. She would kind of flip from one topic to another in a way that just wasn't really satisfying to read. So hopefully I can pass this on to somebody else who will enjoy it a lot more. 2024 was the year that I tried to give Chloe Leese a fair chance, and I just found her writing just a little bit immature for the romance that I like to read, which is such a shame because both of these books are inspired by Shakespeare plots. Two Wrongs Make a Right being inspired by Much Ado About Nothing, Better Hate Than Never being based on The Taming of the Shrew. I should have loved these, but I just found her writing style really grating, and so I am passing them on. A couple of books which are not actually mine but have landed on my pile, so I'm going to have to ask my mum what she wants me to do with these. The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary and Dear Mrs. Bird by AJPS. They just happen to be on my pile, so I'm going to return these to my mother. Two books that end up always on and off my unhaul piles every single year, because every year I'm like, oh, I want to hold on to those books because the covers are so beautiful. And also I feel like I didn't give the first book a proper chance. I don't know. I just don't have any inclination to pick this back up. It's Miss Austen and Godmersham Park by Jill Hornby. I know so many people love this. As I say, I've held on to this because the covers are just so beautiful. So this is the front of the dust jacket, and then when you take it off, it's like the embroidery has transferred to the back page. They're gorgeous. I'm not going to be able to find these again, but I didn't really enjoy Miss Austen when I read it back in 2020. I know that the TV series is coming out, and I know so many people just sing the praises of this book. I know Jill Hornby also has another book in her little Austen series coming out this year. So I feel like out of all of the books that I have on my own haul, I could be swayed to picking these up again. Oh, tell me what to do, I'm going to be unhauling and passing on to one of my best friends, Lindsay Ellis's books. So Axiom's End, The Truth of the Divine, and Apostles of Mercy. I love Lindsay Ellis. I'm definitely going to pick up the rest of the books in this series. But as you may know, sci-fi is not really my typical read. I don't see myself going back to these once I've read them, but I do still want to support her. And also the friend that I'm going to be sending these to is also a massive Lindsay Ellis fan, loves her videos but has never read her books. So if I can pass them on to somebody who I think is going to enjoy them, then I'm going to take that opportunity. A book that was really disappointing for me this year was Think Again by Jacqueline Wilson. And I feel kind of sad letting this one go, but I just found this such a blah book. I have a whole review video for this one if you want more of my thoughts. Another one that I have a full review video for is Graveyard Shift by ML Rio. Glad to get another look into this author's mind after loving If We Were Villains so much, but it's just not one I'm going to return to. I have a number of these Penguin Great Food books that I'm going to be letting go off. I've been holding on to these for such a long time because they were the inspiration for my undergrad dissertation, which was all about 18th century cookbooks. And with that in mind, I think I'm gonna maybe hold on to this one, which is by Hannah Glass, because this is really the one that kickstarted my dissertation. But the rest of them I've just been holding on to, and I'm never gonna go back to them. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and The Wit and Wisdom of Tyrion Lannister. I love A Song of Ice and Fire. I have the rest of the books in the series on top of my bookcases, and I am going to be very much anticipating The Winds of Winter whenever it does come out. I know that the TV series for Dunk and Egg is going to be coming out soon, but these are just two that I don't see myself coming back to, and I don't think are really necessary for my collection. The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I picked this up so that I could do a buddy read back in August because my hardback was stuck in boxes at my parents' house, but I'm quite happy to pass this back along to a charity shop now I'm done with it. Some poetry that I'm going to be passing along: Why God is a Woman by Nim Andrews, as well as Citizen, an American Lyric by Claudia Rankin. Both enjoyed in 2019 when I read them, but I've just never come back to. Oh, talk about a disappointing book from this year: Mary or the Birth of Frankenstein by Anna Eckhout. I am such a massive fan of reading books about Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley. You know, I love Romantic Outlaws, which is non-fiction. I love Love and Fury by Samantha Silva. So I was so anticipating this, and it was just dull. And where it wasn't dull, it was ridiculous, and it just felt like historical fan fiction, and I didn't enjoy it. I have a whole review video of talking about why I didn't enjoy this in more detail, so I'll link that down below. She Played and Sang, Jane Austen and Music. This should have really appealed to me. It is two things that I love: Jane Austen and music. What could go wrong? Well, unfortunately, I just didn't find any of the research in this to be told in a particularly engaging way. I didn't always necessarily feel like the arguments that Julie was making were really relevant or interesting or provided any new insight into Jane Austen. I picked this up on a whim in a shop because I saw it in the window display, and it's one of those times where that gamble just didn't pay off. Another Jane Austen non-fiction that I'm going to be letting go off is Jane Austen, The Secret Radical by Hannah Kelly. I have a few Jane Austen non-fictions that I love and I see myself going back to again and again, and this just isn't one of them. Why She Wrote, I picked this up for myself, I believe, for my birthday last year, and this is just one of those books that has illustrations and like little snapshots of bios of different female writers, how they pioneered different genres, how they influenced the wider literary canon. I've read a couple of these, and I always find the issue with this is that a lot of the time they are quite reductionist. They kind of simplify these people's lives, and I've kept a couple of those even though I found that to be true, purely because I thought the illustrations were so beautiful. And in this I found, once again, the bios were very simple, but I also wasn't really fussed on the illustration style, so what am I holding on to it for? From my memoir biography pile, I have The Time in Between by Nancy Tucker. This is a really poignant memoir on anorexia. I really highly recommend this, but it's just one that I don't think I'm going to come back to. The Year of Magical Thinking play by Joan Didion. You'll have seen that I really liked reading the actual memoir. I kind of picked up the play on a bit of a whim, and I just don't think I'm actually going to read it, though I would be very interested in seeing it performed. And then Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I remember reading this in 2018 and finding it really enjoyable to read, but I don't know how inspiring or how much I'm really going to go back to this. A couple of non-fiction books that are basically sequels sequels to books that I think are maybe a bit better, or just ones that I'm going to go back to more. The Elements of Eloquence by Mark Forsyth. Love this author, find his writing really funny and accessible, but I do prefer his book The Horologicon. The Greek Island by Lawrence Durrell. It kind of hurts me to get rid of this one because I actually bought this in Santorini. I wanted to have this as a little keepsake, but I also don't feel like you should hold on to books that you didn't really have an enjoyable time reading just because they came from a particular place. So we're going to let this go. Then some little tiny books that I'm going to be passing on. This little pamphlet, The Politics and the English Language by George Orwell. I have this in other books, so I don't need this little one. Notes on Nationalism, also George Orwell. The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House by Audre Lorde. Once again, I've got this elsewhere. This little Penguin classic off the Suffragettes, and Elizabeth Gaskell's Old Nurse's Story. Penultimate book I'm unhauling is historical fiction, and it is The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower. I remember when this came out, I think like 2017, and so many people whose opinions I trust on historical fiction really raved about this one, and I picked it up in hardback. I was very swayed by the hype, and unfortunately just didn't really get on with it. I've been tempted, especially because I read a short story by Imogen Hermes Gower and I really enjoyed it, but I feel like having passed another year having not reread this one, I just don't think I'm going to get around to, and if I want to, then I can get it out of the library. And then finally, one that I am going to be passing on because I've been able to replace it in a way that is satisfying to me is Mrs. Scrooge by Carol Ann Duffy. I love Carol Ann Duffy's Christmas poems. She releases one every year, and unfortunately I had ordered Mrs. Scrooge years and years ago, and it came in this big format, which are not the formats that I like to read for these, and so I'd always said if I come across Mrs. Scrooge in the smaller format, then I'll replace it, and this year I managed to find it, so I'm going to pass along this one. Once again, this will probably go to my nieces, so it will definitely go to a good home. So there we go, those are all of the books that I am unhauling. I don't actually think I kept a log of how many books that is, so I'll put the number on the screen right now. Feels good to get a little bit of clutter and just books I'm never going to return to, books I didn't enjoy, get them off the shelves and leave space for promising future books. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken to you about today. Did you enjoy them? Do you think I was right or wrong for getting rid of them? I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.